We're going to talk today about some tips for maximizing your efforts as a job seeker when you're using LinkedIn to find a job. The fact of the matter is LinkedIn is going to be a part of your successful job search, whether it's because you found the job on LinkedIn Jobs or because one of your network connections told you about a job, or one of your network connections told some hiring manager that you were looking for a job. It's almost a certainty that LinkedIn is going to be part of your job search, a successful part of your job search. If we can believe that, if we believe that that's true, then we ought to ask ourselves, okay, then how do I increase my visibility on LinkedIn, right? If LinkedIn is going to be responsible in some way for finding the job, then let me make sure as many people as possible can see me on LinkedIn. And so to do that, we need to talk a little bit about how visibility on LinkedIn works. And it's at the heart of visibility on LinkedIn is the size of your personal network. And your personal network is determined by the number of your followers. So in your case, you have 2,323 followers. So that's your followers, their followers, and their followers' followers. So you have three levels of connectivity that determines the depth of your visibility on LinkedIn. So knowing that, if somebody out here was looking for exactly you, exactly your skill set, maybe wanted an employee named Brian, but it doesn't matter because they're outside of your visibility and the depth on your profile will not be visible to that person in most cases. So if that being true, then we can say that adding connections to your network, increasing that 23 followers to more than that, will have an exponential impact to your visibility. Okay, great. So that's the way LinkedIn works. And so that should then impress upon us that we should be paying close attention to what can we do to add meaningful connections on LinkedIn. Now, the world according to Rusty, there's two types of connections on LinkedIn. There are what I refer to as shallow connections, and there are deep connections. A shallow connections is a number. My guess is, Brian, that in that 2,323 followers that you've got, you don't personally know all 2,300. There's a few of them in there that you connected some way, and you probably didn't have any real conversations. But then there are others in that 2,300 where you had conversations like this, or maybe you spent time in the military with them, or you spent time in one of the financial services organizations with them. And with those folks, you've got a much deeper connection. So shallow connections and deep connections both have value, but the value is different. But because both have value, if all we're doing is adding shallow connections, it's okay, you're adding value. So what can we do to add connections? Before we talk about that, let's talk a little bit about the way LinkedIn treats your connection requests. The fact is you are able to send 100 outstanding connection requests per week. It means if you send a connection request to somebody and they accept it immediately, it doesn't count. But if you send a connection request and it's not accepted, it counts one against your 100 outstanding connection requests. So if you send 50 and all 50 are ignored, then you're down to 50 that week.
Do those carry over from week to week?
Yes, from week to week. I haven't been able to determine, Brian, if it's a rolling week or if it's calendar week. I've tried to do a little testing. 3 times in the last 6 months, I bumped up against my limit. It's uncommon because of the things I'm going to show you, but it's possible. But it does reset each week. Because we know that you can only have 100 outstanding connection requests each week, it's vital that we create context when we're sending connection requests out. And what I mean by creating context, when you reach out to Sally, a financial services recruiter in Charleston, South Carolina, she doesn't know you. You need to give her a reason to want to accept that connection request. You need to create some kind of context, some kind of narrative that encourages her to go ahead and accept your connection. That's sort of at the heart of what I'm going to talk about. The first principle that I'd like to get agreement on is, as a job seeker, one of the most important profiles to you is that of a recruiter. Some might say, well, no, you want to know the hiring manager. You want to get connected to the hiring managers because the hiring managers are making the decision. And that's true. But to my life, I can't figure out how to search on LinkedIn for hiring manager. That's not a job title, right? You can't.
Yeah, rarely. I do see job listings on LinkedIn that will say who the role reports to. And then if you can search LinkedIn for that exact role within that company,
100%.
and there's only one of them, then you know who it is.
100%. That's 100% true. And if you could do that in a way, in a scalable way, then we would do that, because we know that the hiring manager has hiring authority, and the recruiter is doing the work of giving the hiring manager candidates to consider. So that, in the hierarchy of decision making, the hiring manager would be better. But there's no way at scale to find those folks. But we can know for sure is that a recruiter or talent acquisition or executive search, these people are involved in searches. They just are. That's what they do. Every day they got recs coming across their desk. So while hiring manager might have more hiring authority, what we can say with certainty is that the recruiter is going to have more visibility into all of the roles that exist within their sphere of influence. As a job seeker, I believe you should be disproportionately adding recruiters to your network. You adding recruiter to your network, it's helpful for you because you need that recruiter to know your profile because you're looking for a job. But it's helpful to the recruiter too, because the recruiter is dealing with the same visibility rules on LinkedIn that you are. So when you add yourself to a recruiter's network, you add your network, your connections, plus your second and third level that were not already in their network. So this is a win-win. From the homepage up in the search box here, I'm going to do a search for insurance recruiter. Now, I've never done this before, so we're going to do it together. And once you pull that up, you're going to want to click on people. These are all the different contexts for this search. We want a people search. Insurance recruiter, people search. And then we don't want the ones we're already connected to. We're looking to add folks. So we want to drop the connections box down and select second and third. This will get profiles that have insurance and recruiter in the profile context that are second and third level connections to you. So we'll show those results. Now, when I do the search, I get 1 million results. Your mileage will vary based on the size of your network, but 1 million, that's a ton. So what we're going to do is we're going to open each one of these not every million. So we're going to open 30, let's say, in separate windows. So I'm going to right click and open it in a separate tab. I'm going to right click and open a separate tab. So this gentleman, global talent acquisition, leadership. We're going to go ahead and he's got staffing and recruiting and IT, strategic planning. We're going to say that this is the right guy. I recommend you find a note tool, a note-taking tool. I use Evernote. You could use OneNote. There's lots of tools out there. But because this approach that we're going to use requires you to write templates for the outreach. Everything that we do on LinkedIn, if we're going to do it more than once, then I want to copy the way I did it and tweak it and make it, again, we're trying to create a message that has context. So I have here LinkedIn note for unsolicited connection requests. Essentially, I've written it 6 or 7 different ways, and each one of them is a message that I would send to executive search, talent acquisition, or recruiter in that connection request. So, and they're all similar. They all start with we haven't met. I'm not trying to fool the person into believing that we're old friends. I've noticed that you are a recruiter in the IT space, or in this case, an executive search professional with a specialization in technology. I'm a veteran tech exec who's seeking my next role. I bet we can help each other out. I'd be honored if we could connect. So I write it in several different ways because if a person doesn't call themselves an executive search professional, they call themselves a talent acquisition professional, then my message needs to be different. So I've written it several ways so I can just pick the one that is most relevant. I'm going to pick the bottom one, and then we're going to go back to that gentleman, Scott, and we're going to connect to him. We're going to add a note, Scott, and paste. Now that's the first step in sending messages out to recruiters. Now, my recommendation is the way this can work, you can open 30 tabs at a time, 40 tabs at a time. Just open a whole bunch of tabs, because as I showed you in my example, some of the folks are not going to be good matches for what you're looking for. Some of them aren't going to add value to you, and you're not going to add value to them really, beyond a shallow connection. So you're going to want to be a little bit picky because you only have 100 connection requests. But I would say send 30 or 40 of these out at the same time. So when you send it out, you're going to get 75% or so are going to accept. You see, back in February, by middle of February, I sent him the message I just mentioned. We haven't met. Notice you're a recruiter. We should connect. Then when you see that they have accepted your connection request, you're going to send a follow-up. So this is the message that you send once the recruiter accepts your connection request. Thank you for accepting my connection request. Hope you're doing well. I was at Signify Health for 3.5 years. These are some of the things I accomplished. Took some time off, but now I'm looking for a role. These are the things I've successfully done in my career. This is a specific kind of role I'm looking for. I've attached my resume. I'd love to schedule some time for a discussion. So that's what you're going to send. You're going to send that message in a follow-up to each of the recruiters who accepts your connection request. And you're going to attach your resume. And when you do that, my experience is you're going to get one of 3 responses. The first response is crickets. You're going to get a response that's going to be no response. That is actually a response. It tells you that they're not ready to be networking with you right now. It's good to have a shallow connection. I'm not interested in a deeper connection. That's okay. Like I said, the shallow connection has value. The second thing that they might do is they might say, Brian, thank you for sharing your experience with me. I appreciate you sending your resume. I don't have any roles for you right now, but I'll keep you in mind should something come across my desk. All right, so we're not going to waste that. We want to try to make this person a deeper connection. So we're going to give one more shot. And this is a message I call message for recruiter without a role right now. And it essentially just says, look, thank you for your response. I understand these roles don't come around every day. I appreciate your offering to keep me in mind when one does. If you'd agree to doing so, it'd be nice if you could introduce me to other folks that might be a mutually beneficial connection, hiring managers, recruiters, just good people. So essentially what you're saying in this message, you're saying, I get it. I know you don't have all the roles in the world and you might not have one for me right now, but I'd still like to try to, make something of this connection beyond just the shallow connection. And then you ask any introductions that you can make, hiring managers, etc. So if you got the response back, I don't have anything right now, you simply reply back to that message, LinkedIn message with this blurb. Now, maybe 10% are going to say, you know what, I will introduce you to one of my peer recruiters. Maybe 90% don't. But this one little bit increases the back and forth between you and this recruiter and increases the odds that they remember Brian's name when that role comes across their desk. I call it building Brian's army. You want an army of people who are thinking of you when a job that meets your profile needs hits their desk, right? The very first time they see an insurance product manager job, they think, hey, wait, Brian was looking for that role. You don't want one person. You don't want a squad of people. You want an absolute army. You want thousands of people thinking that. And if you do, then you increase the likelihood that the visibility on LinkedIn will include one of those people. The third type of response is the response that Brad gave me. And Brad's response was, thanks for connecting. Let's get some time scheduled. This is how you build somebody in your army, by getting on their calendar, scheduling a conversation. We're disproportionately adding recruiters, and we're using relevant search terms based on what job we're looking for. Once they accept the connection, which is in 30 or 40 amount of time, once they accept a connection, we're going to follow up with a deeper introduction and our resume, and then we're going to respond to however they react to our resume. The thing is about sending out 30 or 40 at a time, it's possible that you're going to miss one of those recruiters who sends you back a connection acceptance. Well, there's a way to figure that out too. So up here where it says me, you want to go there and click on settings and privacy. That pops up this other window, the settings window. On the left side, you see this data privacy. Data privacy, get a copy of your data. And this screen pops up. What this allows you to do is each week you can request a download of your connections. And when you click on this request archive, it takes about 10 minutes. You'll get an email telling you it's ready. But this creates a comma separated values file of all of your connections. And it lists in that CSV, first name, last name, company name, job title, email address if it's been approved to be shared, and the date of your connection. So if you did this each week, you could look at the connections since the last time you did it and ensure that every recruiter that was in that grouping, you sent a follow-up message to, because you do not want to waste any of those recruiter connections. Those folks are super important to your job search. So going this way, using this method for ensuring that you don't miss one is highly recommended. I recommend that you keep a log. This is an example of the log that I've got. It's just simple Google Sheet, first name, last name, company, title, connection date. This is the date that I connected with them, the date that I sent them my resume, and then if you have second and third contact. This is important. Let me show you something here. There's a lady who I connected with. Her name's Beth Major, Woodbridge Partners. She's a recruiter in healthcare. I connected with her on the 29th of August. When I connected with her, I'm going to pull her up on the screen. When I connected with her back in August, I did what I told you I would do. I sent the message. She accepted it. Later that day, I sent her a follow-up message, and I sent her my resume, and she didn't respond. So this was back on August 29th, and she didn't respond. But I did a follow-up. I was just on this particular day, I was going through my messages, and I saw a bunch of people that I hadn't heard back from since August, so I sent a follow-up message. This follow-up message that I sent, I'll show it to you in a second. It basically said, look, we hadn't talked in a while. It's been several months. I'm actively searching for my role. I'd love to see if there's anything you're working on. I've attached my updated resume. On that follow-up message, she responded. I sent it out, this message out that I was just telling you about. I sent it out on January 30th. A couple of days later, she responded, hey, I am working on a job description that meets your requirements. It was based on a follow-up from somebody who was in the first of the three categories, the crickets. She was a cricket when I first sent it out to her, but because I did a follow-up, she came back around. It was time. I hit her at a time when it was interesting and important to her, and then that's when we added value to her. Keeping a log like this allows you to follow up with folks later.
So I see here, obviously, I was taking a look at your profile, and all those dates that you were showing me, you were gainfully employed then, and you were just making connections. So this networking on LinkedIn has been doing something, even when you're not necessarily in the active job search.
Yeah, Brian, it's building your network is kind of like planting a tree. You know what they say about planting a tree? The best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. Second best time to plant a tree is today. Same thing with your network. The best time for you to start building your network was when you were a soldier back in the early 90s. The second best time is right now. Now. Not because you need it, but because you're going to need it, right? If we can get into the discipline of creating a network and then digging in and leveraging that network, right? Making those deeper connections before we need it, then lo and behold, that army, Brian's army I was talking about, exists already when you start needing to look for a new role. Reaching out to recruiters should be a cornerstone in a job seeker's networking activity. That's the first. I'm going to talk about three things today. That's the first thing. The second thing that is super low effort and high value, both for you and the person you're connecting to. If you connected to people who were also adding recruiters at a disproportional rate, then that would do wonders for your visibility, because then those folks would be second level connections, they're recruiters, and they would be within your network. Who is adding recruiters to their network? And the answer is job seekers. Job seekers are adding recruiters to their network. When you're scrolling through LinkedIn, it normally shouldn't take very long to find the person who's looking for a new role. What you could also do is look for the hashtag open to work. If you search open to work and you click on it, don't hit enter, but click on it, you'll get the people who tag open to work in there. I don't know Anastasia, so let's open Anastasia in a new window. I have a habit of opening them in a new window because I don't want to lose where I am in the flow. All right, so Anastasia, 350 connections. She certainly needs all the help she can get to get a broader network. She is active on LinkedIn. This is a perfect candidate for my second recommendation, and that is unsolicited connection requests for job seeker. I've written it 4 ways. The first way is the one that's relevant for Anastasia. We haven't met. I read your post this afternoon. I'm offering this connection request in hopes that having access to my network might unlock something for you. But because she's got less than 1,000 connections, I add this little bit. I encourage you to work on growing your network. Greater numbers equals greater visibility. So I'll copy that. So let's get back to Anastasia. And then again, what I'll do is I'll drop here, go to connect. Sometimes if it's third level, you'll get this kind of message, or if they don't have a very big connection, I typically click on other, add a note, and Anastasia, and I hit send. Now that helps you and it helps her, right? Because she needs network visibility on LinkedIn, and so do you. She is looking for a job, which means she's going to be connecting to recruiters. You're looking for a job. You're adding recruiters. It helps both of you out tremendously. So that's the second of the three things I was going to talk about. The third thing is a little bit maybe more, it's got longer term value. And for this one, I recommend a person think about how they expect their network to be valuable to them in the long run. You're not always going to be looking for a job. So while you'll want to continue adding recruiters, because recruiters are super valuable and you can add value to recruiters by being connected to them, in the long run, there might be some other way that your network is valuable. And I'll take personal example for illustration purposes. At some point, I'm going to stop the corporate world. And when I do, I'll retire. But I won't retire to, rocking chairs and fishing poles and golf courses. I'll be active still. I'll still want to talk to people about leadership and culture and diversity, equity, inclusion. I'll still want to do coaching. I'll still want to do speaking. I'll still do a fair amount of writing. So if that's what I'm going to retire to, let's say in 7-8 years, I'm going to retire. And when I do, I'm going to be, coaching leadership. Who hires leadership coaches? Probably lots of people, but two categories in particular that I think of. I'm a geek. I'm an IT guy. IT leaders who have aspirations of career growth. So maybe it's a manager or a director who desires to be a CIO before they hang it up. That person might hire a coach on their own. The other people who hire coaches are HR teams, learning and development teams. What I would do then, and I have done, is look for learning and development, do a search for learning and development. And then once the search results pop up, you're going to want to find events. You see here where it says events. I'm not sure if you've ever attended a LinkedIn event, but they happen all the time. They're typically sponsored by individuals or by companies. And a lot of times they are in support of some sales effort, right? Maybe they're selling a consulting service or something like that. But there's a lot of value in listening to the material that they present. There's also a ton of value in the networking opportunity it presents. What I know about all of these events is that the people who are attending it have some interest in learning and development. So I don't know the people individually, but I know that if they did a search and they came up on this, how coaching influences learning and development, these are probably people who are interested in learning and development. So when I pull the events up, I'm looking for an event that happens soon. So it's March 9th. That's in 2 days. And I want one with maybe 100 attendees. Drug Discovery and Development Summit. That's probably not what I'm looking for. Reskilling and upskilling. This is a good one. How to create a learning culture at work. That looks really good. So we're going to go there, and we're going to want to register to attend that event. And when we attend the event, I'm not going to attend that one. I'm just going to go to an event that I have set in before. So there's a list of all the events that I had set in the past. Like this one. This is an event I have set in back on February 22nd. You're going to be able to listen to the event and you're going to be able to engage in the comments. But you're also going to have access to this networking tab. This networking tab shows all of the attendees, shows the profiles of all the attendees who attended the meeting. So we're going to write a message, unsolicited connection request for webinar attendee. We both appear to have attended such and such event. I hope you're getting value from it. I'd be honored if we might connect our professional networks. So what you know about the people who are in this meeting, you know a couple things. You know that they are interested in something that you think is valuable to your network. And you have some context similar with them because at the very least you registered for this event. Maybe they weren't able to attend, but you registered for this event. But remember what I said at the outset is that one of the things we're trying to do when we're sending connection requests is create some kind of context that encourages a person to accept your connection request. Being in this webinar event together is that context. So you write that message, then you go to this area here, you open it in a new tab. While you're listening, you open it to a new tab because if you didn't, you would stop listening to the event, and that's no good. So you open another event, another tab, or even another window, and then you right-click on these and open each one of these and take a look at each of the people who were in the event, and then you send. You don't send it to everybody maybe, but you look to make sure that it's somebody who actively uses LinkedIn. You look to see if it's somebody who has connections that make the connection more valuable, has filled out profile, not just a company names. You can tell when a profile is something somebody just opened and it's something somebody uses and leverages. You want the second category, somebody who's active on LinkedIn, because doing so will decrease the likelihood that your connection request goes unfulfilled. So if you do that, while you're listening to the event, by the end of the event, you can maybe send 30 or 25 or whatever of these messages out. If you find 25 or 30 people that you think are good connections, send them out with that context, and you'll see a very high hit rate over the next couple of weeks of people accepting your connection request. So the last thing I'd say is thinking about the job search. The thing about a job search is that it's going to be frustrating.
Yes.
There's going to be days, Brian, there are going to be weeks when nothing positive seems to happen. You're in this search and you're going out and you're applying to jobs, and it's the perfect freaking job. If they would just call me, they'll see that I am the candidate they're looking for. And guess what? You can't make them call you. Now, you can network and you can try to find other people at that company to try to influence that person to call you back, but you can't make them do it. And that, I think, is the most frustrating part of a job search, is that the typical traditional job search demands, relies on, requires somebody else to do something for you.
Mm-hmm.
And as a person who wants to establish a plan and execute the plan, that's frustrating. That means my plan only succeeds if somebody who's never heard my plan gets on board. That's frustrating. If you will replace 30%, 40% of your time with these activities that we agreed upon at the very beginning are extending your visibility on LinkedIn, the very tool that will likely lead to your successful end of your job search. If you focus on these activities, you can do all these activities and end the day having been fulfilled, having been satisfied with progress, with nobody having to respond to you. Check this out. I'm going to share something with you here. And forgive me because it's going to be a little bit skewed because of that post that I did last week. It had incredible response. But this is a chart of the number of followers that have been added. Now I'm going to do a 365. I'm going to tell you that I started focusing on growing my network with this sort of approach in July of last year. Check out what happened since the last 365 days. So that's July. Doing these things since July. Now this is an anomaly. This was what happened when I posted the job seeker help stuff. It was 2 days of anomalous growth. But this activity is the result of the things that I talked to you about today done over time. Every single day, you're adding people. Some days you're adding 10, some days you're adding 40. But every day, if you do this, you can add people to your network. Why does that matter? Connections lead to increased visibility. By the way, for you and for the person you're connected to. So it's one of those true win-win things. And because it's something that you can plan and control the effort that you put into it and see the results, as you can see here, the results of it, it has an incredible impact on your mental health to be able to see that, yeah, they're not calling me back for this perfect role. I can't do anything about that, but I can do something about this. I can put my effort to positively grow my visibility on LinkedIn, which I know over time will lead to success. And I think that's one of the things that makes this approach super useful to the job seeker, is that it helps you from a mental health standpoint too.
No, having those analytics handy and being able to see the progress of your efforts is hugely important, because like you said, there's so much ghosting on the other side.
There is, and they're not nefariously ghosting you. Right?
No.
They're trying to fill the role. And for whatever reason, their understanding of their best way to fill that role didn't include Brian. I mean, it's not their fault, it's not your fault, right? It just didn't meet up. Like I said, it's a baseball analogy. If you're not a baseball fan, it might not work with you, but to get a hit, you need at bats. And you just keep going up there and looking for those at bats. And in the end, you will not always be unemployed. You keep at it and you keep at it and doing the work. It may feel like it on a day, but then tomorrow, the connection you made yesterday is going to hit. And when that connection hits, you need to prepare with all the other good job seeker information that people share. That's not part of this conversation, but you're looking for increased visibility on LinkedIn, and this is a way to do it.